When you publish a book, one of the first things you do is quite a few radio, TV interviews, and they are a lot of fun. And you pretty much know what kind of questions to expect, but once in a while, they throw in a curveball. And I want to share one of my curveball interviews with you tonight. And it went something like this. WXXX, we have Chana Levitan with us today. And Chana wrote a book called I Only Want to Get Married Once. Now, I think that's a really important title. And, you know, my parents, they were married. They had a great marriage. And I thought I'd also get married and have a great marriage. And I married my girlfriend, and it was a disaster. And Chana, I want you to tell me where I went wrong. What do I do with that one? We're live, 15 minutes on the air. Do I get his ex-wife on the line, right? Analyze his relationship history? I was stumped, but then I got it. And I said, you know, we live in the age of infatuation. And in the age of infatuation, we think because we got that funny feeling in our stomach, well, this must be love. And oftentimes, it's not. I said, you know, your parents, grandparents, they knew they needed to work on a relationship in order for it to last. And that's one of the things we seem to have forgotten. The age of infatuation. You know, we know that infatuation and love can work against each other. The question is, can they work together? In order to answer that question, we need to know some of the differences between love and infatuation. Tonight, we're going to look at 3. Number 1, infatuation is short-lived, it's temporary. How long can infatuation last? A day, an hour, right, until the person opens their mouth. Sometimes that's all it takes. But you know, given its full length, really 6 to 18 months is average, 3 years is max, and then it's going to run out of gas. So infatuation is short-lived. Number 2, infatuation is very image-oriented. Oftentimes, we end up projecting an image of what we want to see onto that person. And countless people have said to me, now I realize that I was in love with who I thought he was or she was. Love is about seeing the person with their faults and all. And a third difference is that infatuation is effortless. I mean, think about it. How does infatuation happen? There's a nice person, respectful, my parents would love him or her. I think I'll be infatuated with that person today, right? And then we work really hard. Is that what happens? No. It sort of hits us in the face, sometimes with the person who would be the worst possible match for us. Love takes effort. Now, can infatuation lead to love? Yes, it certainly can, but in order to graduate from infatuation to love, we need to make some efforts. Now, effort's a good thing. Anything worth anything takes effort. You want to be a good musician, you got to practice. You want to be a good athlete, you got to work out. A good doctor, you got to study. If you want to be in a great relationship, you have to put in the effort. Question is it worth putting in the effort? Or the question is, does your relationship have real, long-lasting love potential? Well, how do you know that? See, the connection between love and infatuation is best exemplified by a campfire. You want to build a campfire, well, what do you need? First, logs, right? If you want a good campfire, you need big logs. But if you've got the logs and the matches, you're going to be there for a long time trying to get them going. What else do you need? Kindling, paper, branches. Now, if all you have is the kindling, you'll have a great fire for 5 minutes. So we need the kindling to get the logs going. And that's infatuation and love. So we want to make sure when we're in a relationship and we're excited and the chemistry is there, we want to make sure that there are love logs. And there are 5 essential love logs that you need in your relationship in order to graduate into a happy marriage. And they are, number 1, shared values. 2, trust. 3, healthy boundaries. 4, mutual respect. And 5, good communication. Tonight, we're going to look at shared values. What is a value? It's a bedrock belief about what we believe is right or wrong, good or bad. It's in our gut. And that's why values are so important. They really are a reflection of our essence. I remember a woman coming to speak with me about her relationship, and she said, you know, I'm really confused because I'm crazy about this guy. We have so much fun together. But every time we get serious, there's a disconnect. And I know I'm more of like a deep, spiritual kind of person, philosophical. He is Mr. Business. He's into financial success, and he's really good at what he does. And although, you know, I can make some money, I'm not really all about financial success. And he says, I want to be spiritual one day, but I'm busy right now, you know, getting my business together. So every time we talk about something serious, we have this disconnect. But we have so much fun together at the same time. I mean, we both play tennis. We both like the same music. We love to travel. So it's really confusing. And I said to her, I said, you know, what you're confused about is the following. I just happen to have this in my back pocket. Well, you see, there are values, goals, and interests. And when we're talking about common interests, how many common interests does a couple need to have in order to have a lasting, loving marriage? 0. Now, if you have them, great. The more the merrier. But they don't need to be there. What does need to be there are the shared values. Because again, that's our guts. That's our bedrock beliefs. And our goals tend to come from our values. If education is a value, so it'll be a goal to get educated, right? If creating a family, starting a family is a value, so it'll be a goal to get married and have that family. So when we share values, we're sharing the most important aspects. And with interests, well, you know, he likes to play golf, she likes to play tennis. Well, they could go out and do their own thing and meet up later. The values are the key. Now, I'm not saying that when you're dating, you need all of your values to match up. I mean, that would be impossible. But you want to look for your top, let's say, 5 values approximately, and know what they are. And those are the kind of things that really need to match up. And in that sense, before you date someone else, in a sense, we have to date ourselves. Know what we stand for, what's important to us, what are our values. So here are 3 questions to get you started. These are 3 values questions. Number 1, if you inherited $10 million, what would you do with the money? Like, the way a person spends money tells us about who they really are. A second values question. If you could give your children only 3 values, what would they be? That's a values question. Another deep question. If you could ask God 1 question, what would that be? Values. The importance of taking the time to get in touch with ours. Dating ourselves. Taking the time to really date ourselves. Now, I would never tell you what values to look for. I mean, that's a subjective reality. But there is one value across the board. If you're looking for a happy marriage, one value for sure you're looking for. And that value is marriage. That sounds obvious, but it's really not these days. Marriage is a value. And if marriage is a value, that means that we're going to do everything we possibly can to make that marriage last. I believe that many divorces could be avoided. Now, again, there are times where divorce is relevant. There are times when it is the only solution to, let's say, abuse, unchecked mental illnesses, unchecked addictions, sometimes is, again, an unforeseen thing that happens. But given those exceptions, if we have the mindset that marriage is a value or we're going to do everything to make it work, that is key. And that also means that we understand that love is a verb. It's also a feeling, but essentially it's a verb. The verb of love, of giving, of encouraging, supporting, these are verbs. And if we don't practice these verbs, any relationship, no matter how great it is, it's just not going to last because we have to water that relationship. The concept of love being a verb is actually not a new thing, although we tend to think it is. We can go back 3,300 years to Hebrew, to ancient Hebrew. How do you say love in Hebrew? Ahava. And the root of ahava is hav, which means to give. So the essence of love is the practice of giving, is the practice of choosing love again and again. And sometimes, as adults, we become so savvy and sophisticated that we forget this simple truth. And sometimes it's the kids that remind us. Because children are connected, they're tuned in. And there was a beautiful research experiment. Children between the ages of 4 and 8 were interviewed, and the question was, what does love mean? And here are some of their answers. There was a little girl who was 8 years old, and she said, love is when my grandmother got arthritis and she couldn't bend over and paint her toenails anymore, so now my grandfather does it for her all the time, even when his hands got arthritis. That's love. Or a 5-year-old who said, love is when mommy gives daddy the best piece of chicken. Right? They see these little actions. That's love. Love is in those actions. Right? A 7-year-old said, love is when my mommy makes coffee for my daddy and she takes a sip just to make sure the taste is okay. Or a 6-year-old, here's a deep 6-year-old, love is when you go out to dinner and you give most of your French fries away without making that person give you any of theirs. It's simple, but we forget. And we need to remind ourselves. So if you want a great marriage, we want to just put the infatuation on the side a little bit to make sure that we share values and that we're committed to choosing love again and again and making that effort to choosing that love. Because really, there is nothing more important than that loving, lasting relationship that, again, translates into a happy marriage. Choose love. Thank you.